The winds of change are sweeping across the Sahel. This vast, semi-arid region stretching across the breadth of Africa has long been a land of resilience and struggle. The people here have faced countless challenges, from harsh climatic conditions to political instability, yet they have always found ways to adapt and survive. But now, a new kind of storm is brewing, one that threatens to reshape the very fabric of their societies. A series of coups have shaken the region, toppling governments in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. These sudden and dramatic changes in leadership have sent shockwaves throughout the Sahel and beyond. The military takeovers are not just about power struggles, they reflect deeper issues of governance, corruption, and the people's growing discontent with their leaders. The streets of these nations have become battlegrounds, with citizens demanding change and accountability. These are not mere political tremors. They are seismic shifts, expressions of deep-seated frustration with the status quo. The protests and uprisings are fueled by a sense of betrayal, as promises of development and prosperity remain unfulfilled. The youth in particular feel the weight of unemployment and lack of opportunities. Their voices, once silenced, are now rising in unison, calling for a new direction, a new hope. The people have spoken, their voices echoing across the arid plains, a demand for true sovereignty, for an end to exploitation, for a future free from the shadows of the past. They seek leaders who will prioritize their needs, who will invest in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The call for change is not just political, it's a cry for dignity, for a chance to build a better life for themselves and their children. These coups, however, are not isolated incidents. They are interconnected chapters in a larger narrative. A narrative that spans decades, marked by struggles for independence, battles against colonial powers, and the quest for self-determination. Each coup, each protest is a continuation of this story, a testament to the enduring spirit of the Sahelian people. A narrative of resistance against the lingering effects of colonialism, of economic subjugation, of a global order that has long favored the powerful at the expense of the marginalized. The scars of colonialism are still visible, in the borders drawn without regard for ethnic and cultural ties, in the exploitation of resources, and in the economic policies that have kept the region impoverished. But the people of the Sahel are resilient, and their resistance is a powerful force. The Sahel, for too long a pawn in a larger game, is now determined to chart its own course. Communities are coming together, finding strength in unity, and working towards common goals. Grassroots movements are gaining momentum, advocating for sustainable development, environmental conservation, and social justice. The region is rich in culture and history, and its people are drawing on this heritage to forge a new path forward. The world watches with bated breath. Will these nations succeed in their quest for self-determination, or will they be crushed under the weight of history and external pressures? The international community has a role to play, not as overseers but as partners in development. The media's spotlight on the Sahel brings global attention, but it also brings responsibility. The stories of the Sahelian people must be told with accuracy and empathy, highlighting their struggles and triumphs. The answer, like the shifting sands of the Sahel itself, remains uncertain. The future is a landscape of possibilities, shaped by the actions and decisions of today. The challenges are immense, but so are the opportunities. The resilience and determination of the Sahelian people are their greatest assets, and with the right support and solidarity, they can overcome the obstacles in their path. One thing is clear, a new chapter is being written in the heart of Africa. This chapter is filled with hope, courage, and the unwavering spirit of a people who refuse to be defined by their past. As the sun rises over the desert, it brings with it the promise of a new dawn, a brighter future for the Sahel and its people. The journey ahead is long and fraught with challenges, but the Sahelian people are ready to face it head-on, with resilience, unity, and hope. To understand the present, one must delve into the past. The history of the Sahel is a tapestry woven with threads of resilience, struggle, and survival. This region, like much of Africa, has endured centuries of external influence and internal strife, shaping its current landscape in profound ways. The Sahel, like much of Africa, bears the deep scars of colonialism. The colonial era was a period marked by exploitation and domination, where European powers carved up the continent with little regard for the existing cultural and ethnic landscapes. The imposition of foreign rule disrupted traditional ways of life, and imposed new systems of governance and economy that were alien to the indigenous populations. France, the primary colonial power in the region, left an indelible mark on the political, economic, and social fabric of these nations. French colonial policies were designed to benefit the metropole at the expense of the colonies. Administrative structures were established to maintain control and facilitate the extraction of resources, while local populations were often marginalized and oppressed. The arbitrary borders drawn during the colonial era divided communities and ignited ethnic tensions that continue to simmer today. These borders, often drawn with little understanding or consideration of the complex ethnic and cultural landscapes, have been a source of conflict and division. Families and communities found themselves split between different colonies, leading to a legacy of tension and strife that persists in the modern era. Colonialism, however, was not merely a matter of political control. It was a comprehensive system of economic exploitation and cultural domination. Colonial powers sought to reshape the colonies in their own image, imposing their languages, religions, and cultural practices. This cultural imperialism was often accompanied by a denigration of local traditions and knowledge systems. It was a system designed to extract wealth from the colonies, enriching the colonizers while leaving the colonized impoverished. The economic policies implemented by colonial powers prioritized the extraction of raw materials and the production of cash crops for export, often at the expense of local food security and economic development. This created economies that were heavily dependent on a few commodities, making them vulnerable to market fluctuations. The Sahel, with its vast natural resources, was no exception. The region's rich deposits of gold, uranium, and other minerals were systematically exploited to industries. This extraction was often carried out with little regard for the environmental or social impacts on local communities, leading to long-term consequences that are still felt today. Its gold, uranium, and other precious minerals were plundered to fuel European industries, leaving the region underdeveloped and economically dependent. The wealth generated from these resources rarely benefited the local populations, instead flowing back to Europe to support industrial growth and development. This created a cycle of dependency and underdevelopment that has been difficult to break. Even after independence, true freedom remained elusive. The newly independent nations of the Sahel faced immense challenges as they sought to build their own political and economic systems. The legacy of colonialism, with its deep-seated inequalities and structural dependencies, continued to shape their trajectories. Many of the new leaders were educated in Europe and often adopted Western models of governance and development, which did not always align with local needs and contexts. The colonial powers may have retreated, but their influence lingered. Economic and political ties with former colonizers remained strong, and many of the new nations found themselves still reliant on their former rulers for trade, aid, and investment. This neo-colonial relationship often perpetuated the same patterns of exploitation and dependency that had characterized the colonial era. Economic policies continued to favor former colonizers. Trade agreements and economic policies were often skewed to benefit the former colonial powers, maintaining their economic dominance. This made it difficult for the Sahelian nations to develop independent and self-sustaining economies. The global economic system, with its inequalities and imbalances, further entrenched these patterns of dependency. Political systems, modeled after European structures, often failed to address the unique needs and challenges of the Sahel. The adoption of Western-style political systems did not always translate into effective governance. Many of these systems were ill-suited to the local context and failed to address the specific needs and aspirations of the Sahelian populations. This often led to political instability and disillusionment with the post-colonial state. This legacy of colonialism, of exploitation and control, fueled the resentment and frustration that finally erupted in the recent wave of coups. The deep-seated grievances and unaddressed injustices of the colonial and post-colonial periods have created a fertile ground for conflict and upheaval. The recent coups in the Sahel are a stark reminder of the enduring impact of this shared history of struggle and the urgent need for a new path forward. From the ashes of political upheaval, a new force has arisen, the Sahel Alliance. This alliance, formed in the wake of the coup in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, represents a bold declaration of independence. It is a rejection of the old order, a defiant stance against neo-colonialism and external interference. The goals of the Sahel Alliance are clear: to forge a new path based on self-reliance, regional integration, and mutual cooperation. The alliance seeks to control its own destiny, to harness its resources for the benefit of its people, to stand tall on the world stage as an equal partner. This is not merely a political or economic union, it is a cultural and social movement. It is a reawakening of Pan-African ideals, a shared vision of a strong and united Africa free from external control. The Sahel Alliance is a beacon of hope, not just for the region, but for all of Africa and the global south. At the heart of the Sahel Alliance's struggle for economic sovereignty lies the contentious issue of the CFA franc. This currency, which has been in use since the colonial era, is a stark reminder of the region's historical ties to France. The CFA franc is not just a medium of exchange, it is a symbol of the economic control that has persisted long after the end of formal colonial rule. For many in the Sahel, the CFA franc represents a system that has kept their economies tethered to the interests of a foreign power, limiting their ability to chart an independent economic course. This colonial relic, a currency pegged to the euro and controlled by France, has long been a source of resentment and a symbol of continued economic dependence. The CFA franc's value is directly tied to the euro, meaning that the monetary policies of the European Central Bank have a direct impact on the economies of the Sahel. This arrangement has been criticized for prioritizing the stability of the currency over the economic needs of the region. Critics argue that this system benefits France and its economic interests at the expense of the Sahel's development and financial autonomy. The CFA franc, critics argue, stifles economic growth, limits financial independence, and perpetuates a system where African economies are beholden to the whims of former colonial powers. The fixed exchange rate with the euro means that the Sahel countries cannot devalue their currency to boost exports or adjust their monetary policy to respond to local economic conditions. This lack of flexibility has been a significant barrier to economic development, contributing to high unemployment rates and stunted growth. The economic policies dictated by this arrangement often do not align with the realities on the ground, leading to widespread frustration and calls for change. The Sahel Alliance recognizes the need to break free from this system, to establish its own monetary policies, and to control its own financial destiny. This move is seen as essential for fostering economic growth and development in the region. By creating a new currency, the Sahel countries aim to gain the monetary sovereignty needed to implement policies that are tailored to their specific economic circumstances. This shift is not just about changing the currency, it is about reclaiming the economic agency that has been denied to them for so long. The decision to move away from the CFA franc is not just about economics, it is a powerful statement of self-determination. It signifies a break from the past and a step towards a future where the Sahel countries can make decisions that are in their best interests. This transition is expected to be challenging, but it is also seen as a necessary step towards achieving true economic independence. The new currency is envisioned as a tool for empowerment, enabling the Sahel countries to pursue policies that promote sustainable development and reduce poverty. It is a declaration that the Sahel Alliance will no longer tolerate a system designed to keep it economically subservient. The move away from the CFA franc is a bold assertion of the region's right to self-governance and economic autonomy. It is a rejection of the paternalistic economic structures that have long. It is a declaration that the Sahel Alliance will no longer tolerate a system designed to keep it economically subservient. The move away from the CFA franc is a bold assertion of the region's right to self-governance and economic autonomy. It is a rejection of the paternalistic economic structures that have long dictated the terms of their development. By taking control of their monetary policy, the Sahel countries are sending a clear message that they are ready to take charge of their own economic destiny. This bold move has sent shockwaves through the international community, challenging the established economic order and inspiring other African nations to reconsider their own monetary arrangements. The Sahel Alliance's decision has sparked a broader conversation about the legacy of colonialism and the need for economic reforms across the continent. It has highlighted the importance of monetary sovereignty as a cornerstone of true independence. As the Sahel countries embark on this journey, they are not only reshaping their own futures but also setting an example for other nations striving for economic self-determination.